Good afternoon, folks. Today, we're going to talk about saving tomato seeds. Basically, we're going to take this is Super Sweet 100, and we're going to turn it into this. Which, just so you can see, we have a bunch of Super Sweet 100 seeds here that I've already done this to this year. You might be asking yourself why you can't just take these seeds and plant them in the ground and expect good results. And it has to do with this gel coating that is on the seeds. So we have to go through a process to get rid of them. It's easy, although it's not particularly fast. I'll show you what you need to do. Let's go for a close-up of those seeds again. So that is what it looks like when you get the seeds right out of the tomato. And you can see that thick gel coating around them. That inhibits their ability to germinate. So we need to ferment them off, and it's pretty simple, but you're going to need a few things to do it. Just again, for contrast, same variety of tomato. This is what the seeds look like when they're dry and ready to plant, basically. So I'm doing this outside today because my wife is sick. She's coughing and she's sneezing, and that doesn't make for good audio. Not that I'm known for particularly good audio at any rate. So, what you're going to need is a source of water. This is just water from the sink, and that's fine. You're going to need like some sort of masking tape or something so that you can make a label, a pen so that you can make a label. I particularly love this pen because it is one of the dumbest things I have ever seen in my life. It says "I love forest" across the front and has a Pac-Man ghost on it. I don't know why, and it's fantastic. I like to use that pen. You're going to need a Tupperware container about this size. I want to say this is one of the quart-sized ones. Does it say somewhere in it? On the bottom of this one, it says 5.2 cups. So you're going to need that, and you're going to need the tomato or tomatoes that you're going to be processing. Now, today I am using this one. I know I was showing a Super Sweet 100, but it's the same process either way. I have a tomato here that has started to go bad. As you can see, we've got some kind of funk there, and then this dark spot on the bottom is the tomato starting to kind of spoil. So, it's perfectly fine to do this with spoiling tomatoes. You want a deep Tupperware container for this step. I found that that's helpful because later we're going to be doing water winnowing, essentially, and the deeper container is more useful for that purpose. You could use the really thin ones, but then you might have to transfer it to another container, and then that gets kind of not great. So I like to use this size for this purpose. And then you're going to need a lid, and you're going to need the tomato that you're going to be processing, or tomatoes, I should say. So the process is pretty simple. You're going to take the inside of this tomato and you're going to squish it into the inside of the Tupperware container. Forgive the bits of lint. I cleaned something yesterday, apparently. Didn't get all of the lint off the table. Alright, so this is one of those times where just getting your hands dirty works pretty well. You don't want the meat so much as the gel on the inside. So I'm just gonna pierce it. I say that like that's super easy. Oh. Yeah, remember that spot I said was spoiling? Well, that's kind of gross. Cool. Well, that makes it easy. Just kind of squish it out. See? That got me in the face. Cool. You know what? Use a knife. How's that? Now I'm like not wanting to hit myself in the face with this again. Come on. That's a surprisingly meaty tomato. Anyway, we'll take that part off, set that aside for a second. You're just going to go through and get the seeds and the gel, all that, and squish it down into your Tupperware container like so. This is easiest with cherry tomatoes because you just kind of squish them and you're done. Alright. This is going to go into the compost pile. Do the same thing over here. Come on. If you can manage to do this with a knife and not mangle the tomato in the process, you can eat it afterwards if it's one that's not going off like this one is. You do you. If you are doing this too, tomatoes that you're putting in, that you would normally use for like a soup or something, you could do that as long as the tomatoes are still good, even if you do mash them all up, because generally that would be pureed or something. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get all of it in there. So anyway, you just want to make sure you go in and into the different pockets and get all the seeds you can. And for the purposes of our demonstration here, oh look, I missed a bunch. For the purposes of our demonstration here, this is sufficient. Alright. What you end up with looks like that. Just a bunch of seeds kind of floating around or sitting around, and there's some meat and pulp and whatnot in there as well. You can kind of just see it there. That's fine. I'll rinse my hands. So, now that you've got this nice little pulpy mess, and it has like big blobby bits in here, and that's okay. You want not a lot of that, but some of that's not going to be problematic. The next step is you're going to add water. Again, water from your sink is fine. And I'm going to do probably about half the container. You could do less water in this stage, but since I have a bunch, I'm just going to do about half the container. Okay, and that dilutes the whole mess. Then what you do, you take your handy dandy lid, you snap that on top, like so. I'm going to give it a little shake, just to make sure it's all nice and wet and incorporated. Then you're going to create your label, slap your label on this, and set this somewhere in your house, or your garage or shed or something, whatever you want to do. Somewhere room temperature, generally. So like mid-70s. Just going to set it there for 2 weeks. You don't need to open this. You don't need to do anything to it. There's no stirring. There's no anything else to this until we get to the next step. So, I'm going to say giant crimson. It's probably a hybrid at this point because I don't think giant crimson is stable when it's interbreeding. So, giant crimson, I'll say parent plant. Since we don't really know. Alright, so that's it for the first step of this process. In 2 weeks' time, I'll do another video here showing what you do next with the water winnowing procedure. It's actually pretty simple. This whole thing is pretty simple. For the next step, you will need a paper plate and a sink. You could use a hose, but a sink I find works better, especially if it's got one of those, one of the nozzles that can do like a spray, like you would do for dishes or something. Thanks for watching, and until we talk again. Woo, it's hot outside today. don't need that anymore. Get that out of the way. Okay, so you're gonna need a few things. Now, I am doing this outside because my wife is sick, and she's coughing and sneezing kind of constantly, so that doesn't make for good audio. Not that I am fantastic with audio anyway, but that's neither here nor there. So what you're gonna need, I'm doing this outside. You know, I practiced this a bunch, and I still can't do it. And at this stage, it's not usually that gross. Although, I will say, the next step is kind of gross, but that's going to be... No. It smells a bit like a squash. Fitting start to the month. Get spoiled tomatoes sprayed all over myself, and then hit myself in the face with it, too. It's always something.